All right, so this demo is to show you how to make viewports. So essentially, when you want to do this is once you've completed your drawing. So in this case, you should have something like this going on. You should have drawings 1 to 6 completed and all in the same file, saved, happy, and then we can move on to doing viewports. First thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to make a new file so I don't mess up. So I'm just going to save as. And then now I'm going to call this, instead of orthographic projection notes, this is going to be viewport notes. Viewport notes, save. All right, in your junior drafting booklet, you have something called viewports. This is what I will be alluding to if you want to follow along. And it has step-by-step instructions with pictures. Again, they're just dated in that you can still, like my maiden name is still on this assignment, but it's essentially the same thing. So the first step is make a new layout, rename it the same thing as the drawing. Okay, easy enough. I'm going to get rid of one that I have here, delete, or whatever, I'll just make a copy. So I go down to the layouts down here. You can press the little plus button, or you can right click new layout, whatever. I'm going to press the plus, and it's called layout 1. So I'm going to rename it, and I'm going to call it DWG1, drawing 1. Just for simplicity's sake. If you write drawing 1, all you're going to see is drawing. You know, it's going to cut it off. So I'm just shorting, or you can call it like D1 or whatever, to keep the tabs small. So DWG1 should look like this. Essentially, it's a piece of paper with a viewport in it. Your first step is going to be deleting the viewport that's on the page. So you're going to take the one that's here, and you're going to remove it. What I want to address before we get into this too much is like, what is a viewport? So essentially, you have 2 spaces. You have your model space, and then you have this, which is your paper space or your layout. These are 2 different places. So if I was to draw on paper, like I'm in my paper space right now, and I'm drawing, I'm like literally drawing on the paper. I'm not drawing in my model space. Like I haven't modified my objects in any way. All I'm doing is drawing on the paper, and I'll show you. So I drew all this zigzag. If I go to model space, you don't see any of the zigzag. You don't see any of what I just drew. It's not there. Okay, it still exists. It's over here on my paper. But what this is this is where you do your like paper presentation, where you prepare things for hand in, and then your model space is where you actually draw your items. So essentially, you should never see like your title block in your model space. You should never see dimensions. You should like literally all you should see in your model space are your models, are the objects that you've drawn. That's it. That's all that goes on model space. Everything else is considered like annotation. So annotation, all of those things, notes, all of that goes on the paper space only. And I'll show you kind of the distinction. So I drew here, but if I double click, I'm actually like live in the viewport and I can make changes. So now if I was to draw, like, I don't know, I'll draw a circle or something. If I was to draw like a big circle here, it looks like I'm drawing on the paper space, but I'm actually like live in my model space. Like I've taken my like portal knife and I've sliced over to my model space and I'm like live in there. If I double click out and I show you, there's going to be a big circle now here. So I've like sliced through and I've drawn. Again, the intention when you're in your paper space is not to draw in your model space. You got to be careful. The only reason that you'll be double clicking is to just like set your scale, zoom in, position your drawing. Like it's the only really reason that you need to like zoom in and like be in your model space. But the rest of the time we're going to spend our time in paper space. So these are kind of 2 new vocabulary. Again, model space where you draw your models, paper space being where you lay everything out for presentation for hand in. This is like saves to paper, gets handed in. Although we're not, if you were going to print it, it would be from this page. We're not going to be printing, but that's more or less where it would be. Okay, so I'm going to get rid of all this stuff. Get rid of that, get rid of that, get rid of all my, there we go, redo. So we're back to this. First thing we're going to do is delete the viewport. Now that we know what the viewport is, we're going to select it and then delete. The next thing that we're going to do that isn't noted in here, if we look, is we're going to make sure we set this page to be the right size. So again, this is dated. Again, it's like Murphy S, and I've been married for quite a few years now. So like this is a little bit old. The first thing we need to do is we need to actually make sure that the paper is the size of paper that we want it to be, and it's set up to be saved as a PDF, not set up to be printed onto paper. So there's like a little bit of a distinction there. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to our layout and we're going to right click and we're going to go to page setup manager. So I'll select which one. I did this all capitals, DWG1, modify. And this is, so right now it's, my computer is set to it's set to send to the wood printer. I don't want to send to the wood printer. I want to save as a PDF, right? So the easiest way to do that would be to go to, not Microsoft, we want to go to the AutoCAD. So just AutoCAD PDF general documentation is fine. So again, we're not going to do this Microsoft PDF business. We're going to do the AutoCAD one because it's formatted for AutoCAD. So AutoCAD PDF. And then it comes up with defaults to ANSI full bleed 8.5 by 11. That's fine. That's like your standard piece of paper, 8.5 by 11, or your letter piece of paper, what's in the printer or whatever. And this is set to save to be the exact same size as what you would print on a letter piece of paper. Totally fine. So full bleed, there it is. And then you shouldn't have to change anything else. Okay. Now, the idea behind doing it this way is you set up one layout. And then once it's all set up, you just copy and paste it a whole bunch of times. Sort of like when we set up our layers and we made the file once, so you don't have to make the layers every time. So take your time on the first one, make sure you do it properly. And once it's all set up, you can like copy and paste it. So that was like step 1, like 2, 1.5, I guess. And we'll go into step 2. So the viewport's gone. We're going to turn on grid and snap and we're going to make a border. So grid and snap, you can just type in grid, enter. And then on, mine's defaulted to 1/2 inch spacing. You can change yours to 1/2 inch spacing. You just type in 0.5. So grid, enter, on, enter, and then snap, enter. And my snap's also set to 0.5, enter. So I want to make a border. So to do that, I want to go into my layers. I want to go into my border layer. And then I'm going to go draw, and I'm going to draw a rectangle. Now, if you look at my snap, it's actually lined up nicely with the page. So you can see like the 1/2 inch lines up nicely here and it lines up nicely here. That's because I've set it up to do that, right? So if you notice that your snap's not lining up with your paper, go back to your page setup manager and make sure you have like the ANSI full bleed, whatever piece of paper. What we want to do is we want to go in a 1/2 inch and we want to make a border that's in a 1/2 inch all the way around. So with my snap on, I can just hop in a 1/2 inch and then I go down here. And I hop down and it's going to snap and draw a rectangle for me. I'll turn off my grid, enter, off, enter, and then snap, enter, off, enter. So now my grid and snap are off and I have this really nice 1/2 inch border all the way around. Are there other ways to do this? Certainly. There are lots of other ways to, like you could draw a rectangle, you could offset it by 1/2 inch, you could type in coordinates if you really wanted to. Like there's so many ways to do this. I just find that this is the fastest using grid and snap, because it measures for you. You don't have to type in coordinates. You only have to do it once. So my grid and snap is off. I have this really nice 1/2 inch border. I can double check my line weight. Yep, like that looks, yeah, it looks like a border. It's thick. And we'll move on to the next step. We've got inserting our title block. So I just had 2 people asking me about this. They're like, why is my title block like the same size as my drawing? Well, it's because you're not supposed to insert it to the model space. You don't want your title block here. You want your title block here in your paper space. So we'll go to insert. So you can go to insert tab and then insert and then go more options. This is important when you go to insert that you actually insert the title block, meaning the one that you saved as a W block, not the title block file. So there should be 2 different things. One is where you drew the title block. One is where you saved it as a block. So that was that W block step. So I need to make sure I get the right one. I think I called it like September 2020 FH title block. Let's see, which one was it? So this is where it gets confusing. Title block demo, title block, that one, open. So we should be good to specify on screen, okay. And then it's snapped here. I can click it to the bottom right corner and then my title block shows up and then it asks me questions. Now, I only have 3 fillable fields because I only made 3 fillable fields. You should have lots. So this is where you can fill in your title block. So what block is this class? A. What's your name? I'm Mrs. D. What's the date of completion? 2020-09-21. Now again, when you go to hand in your assignment, you can change the date. But like for now, this is what it's going to be. Turn on my line weight again, make sure it looks good. My line weight looks good. My border is like a little bit thicker than the title block, but the title block's like a thicker line too. And I have this like really pretty sort of professional looking border. We haven't actually done anything with viewports yet. Like we're still setting up our page. So moving on to step 5, fill out the title block with your information. Well, I got it, that's it. You can see I like took my time with the assignment and made like a Fraser Heights logo. This time I have a sleepy face, but that's okay. Once everything's done, you're going to copy this layout many times and then rename it. I'm going to go one step further. I'm going to switch the place of step 5 and step 6. I'm going to make my viewport first, and then I'm going to copy and paste it because I feel like that's like one less step. So I'm going to do that first and then copy and paste it. Just, again, personal preference and like experience. Like since I made this PDF, I found easier ways to do things. So I'll go back to my layers, and this time we're going to use our layer that's called Viewport. Right now it's turned off. I'm going to turn it back on. Select my Viewport layer, and I'm going to make a viewport. So again, I'm going to like slice like a little portal window that's going to go through to my model space. So I do that by typing in VPORT, Viewport or Viewport. You can type in Viewport as well. Enter, and then it's going to give you a whole bunch of options. And this is where Benson and Tim, you guys, you may want to like look at this for a second. This is where you do the 2 viewport option. So when you're going into viewport, you don't just have to do single. You can go 2 horizontal, and then you can put your wrench on the bottom, and then you can put the wrench heads on the top with the different scale. Just make a note on your thing, different scale. Okay, you can ignore me now and go back to what you're doing. All right, so for the rest of you, you can have all kinds of viewports. So you can have like, if say you have 3 drawings that you want to put on a page and they're like all in different scales or something, you can make 3 different viewports. Now for us, we're just putting 1 drawing per page that has 3 views. So we're just going to use what's a single viewport, like it's 1 big window, all scaled the same. So we only want to do like 1 sliced portal window and then go okay. And now as far as where should your viewport go, well, you'll start in your top left corner, and then you're going to go right above your title block. Some people extend all the way down to the bottom of the page. I don't advise doing that. The reason for that is sometimes your drawing will go on top of your title block, and you don't want that. So you want to stop at the top right corner of your title block. Guys, can you talk about that later, please and thank you? All right, so now I've sliced over, like I've sliced over to the model space, and now I can be like live in the model space and see what's going on. I'm going to turn that grid off because it's annoying. There we go. So what we're going to be doing now is positioning our assignment. So I've done step 6. I'm going on to step 7, and I'm going to set my scale. So first things first, I'm going to find drawing 1, and I'm going to kind of just like set it up on the page more or less where I want it. And then the next thing I have to do is I have to set a scale. Now, scale is important in drafting because, like we talked about this with houses, for example, you're not going to draw like full-size house plans and print them on paper that's the same size as the house. Like, it's ridiculous. You're going to scale it down to fit on the page by a specific factor so that you can like measure and make calculations off that drawing. Same as this, right? If we were to put this full size, this drawing is like 12 inches long. Well, the paper's only 11.5. So we got to work within our constraints. So my recommended scale for these assignments is 1:3. Conveniently, that's not a scale that's available, so we have to make that. So to scale your assignment, you're double-clicked in the window. You go to the bottom here. There's this kind of like rambling numbers here. If you select that, it allows you to select a scale. So there's 1:1. Well, that's too large. There's 1 to 1.5. I have 1:3 now. I have 1:3 because I made 1:3. I find that 1:3 fits really well. Again, use your discretion. 1:2, I find is like just slightly too large to fit. 1:3, I think is really good. Now you don't have 1:3, so here's how you make it. You scroll to the bottom and you go to custom. And then here you go to add, and you want to call it 1:3. So you call it 1:3. And I'll just like make it different. And then important, this is where people forget, you actually have to change the units down here. So it'd be 1 paper unit equals 3 drawing units. What often happens is they'll make the 1:3 scale and they won't change the bottom, and they'll be like, it's not changing. Every time I put it to 1:3, it's still 1:1. Well, it's because you didn't change it here. Okay, so I'm going to call it 1:3, and then maybe I'll put an asterisk. This is my new one. Okay, and then 1:3, okay. And then I'll go here and I'll select 1:3 with a star, and that's my new scale. Now, once you've scaled it 1:3, you can't zoom. As soon as you zoom, you kill your scale. It just goes to like some arbitrary scale that you zoom to. So again, go to 1 to 3. You can like use your pan function to move it around. I'll move it over here so it's like nicely spaced out. And then I want to double click out of my viewport. Okay, so again, double click in, you can zoom and like mess things up. Once you have it set up how you want it and your scale is set up, you're going to very carefully just double click out. And that's all you're going to do. Now, some of you might find that your drawings are actually spaced too far apart from one another. Just go back to your model space and move them closer. That's fine. Like they might just not fit that well on the page. So you can go back and change that if you need to. But essentially, you want to have some space between the object and the border, and you want to have some space between your views and like as evenly spaced as possible. So I think this is looking pretty good. The next step is to turn off the viewport. We don't want to see it. Like it's just the viewport should be invisible. You don't want to see it. You just want to look like the drawing is planted onto your page. So to do that, we go on our layers, we find our viewport layer, and all you do is you turn off the light bulb. And it's saying, do you want to turn your current layer off? Yes, we want to turn the current layer off. And it disappears. So now all you see is you see the border and you see your title block and you don't see that line anymore. And it just looks really like, it looks like you drew this on this page. It doesn't look like you cut it and pasted it from another page. It looks super professional. Okay, let's see if we skipped anything. We did. So now we have to go back to step whatever, 5. Once you're done everything, copy the layout many times and rename them. Okay, well, that's simple enough. So this is done. I'm going to hit save, save. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my DWG1 layer, right click, and then go move or copy. And I want this one, and I want to create a copy. Okay. Okay, well, now I have a copy. It's called DWG1 2. So we'll rename that, and we'll call that drawing 2. DWG2. Now here's the magic, okay? DWG2 is already in use. Oh, okay. We'll call it DWG2 star. Look at that. Stop being difficult. There we go. So here's the magic. Drawing 1 and drawing 2 look like identical right now. And here's where things get really easy. So you go to drawing 2, you double click, and you just like pan over like that. Double click out, and you're done. Like presto changeo. You didn't have to set up your page. You didn't have to do border. You didn't have to whatever. I don't know if that's actually drawing 2. What's drawing 2? This one. Oh yeah. No, it's good. I just double clicked again, double clicked in the viewport, and I just panned. It's going to be the same thing for number 3. Double click out. Same thing for number 4. And like very quickly, you can generate all 6 views. I'm going to pan back over here to this one. And that's essentially all you do for viewports. You're going to do that 6 times. So you'll have drawing 1, drawing 2, drawing 3, drawing 4, drawing 5, drawing 6. Then when you go to save them, if you want to save it as a collection, you can do that when you go to export as PDF. It gives you the option in the top right corner, or down here, sorry. You can export your current layout, or you can export all layouts. So all you do is you export all your layouts, and it like saves it as a collection of PDFs with 1 to 6. All you have to make sure is you don't have any extraneous layouts. So I have these like extraneous layouts I have to delete, and you need to make sure they're in order. And then if you want to reorder them, you just like pull the tabs around and you can reorder them. So that's essentially what you're going to move into next. And then after break, I'm going to show you how to do the next part of just like a quick intro of how to get into dimensioning. If you finish this, so if you finish your viewport stuff and you're not sure what to do, you can show me. And then I would recommend that you go and start reading the 20 dimensioning rules. Oh, and your title block should be different for each page. So like your first page, the title should be drawing 1. Your second page, the title will be drawing 2, 3, 4. And then pages, 1 of 6, 2 of 6, 3 of 6, 4 of 6, 5 of 6. What frustrates me is when you hand in a collection of 6 drawings and each is 1 of 1, it's not a collection. It's just like 6 pages stapled together. So when in your title block, you're going to edit your title block per page. They're all going to have the same date. It's going to have your name. All that's going to be the same, but the title is going to be different and the page is going to be different. And then the last little square that you can talk about is revision, R-E-V. You have a little square that says rev. All of these are going to be revision. They're going to be revision 1. It means it's the original. Now, if you ever hand something in and I ask you to resubmit it, like make changes and resubmit, you change your title block to revision 2. That just means that like you've made edits and you're resubmitting. revision 2. And this happens a lot. As a drafts person, like there's so many projects are going to go through so many iterations, so many changes, and you want to keep track of your revisions and which number you're on. So you can go back, like let's say you make 3 changes, you got to go back and undo those changes. You still have your revision 1 to go back to. I think that's sort of it for viewports. Are there questions about viewports? Here it talks about add any missing dimensions, notes, and show me, and then print. After break, I'll show you how to do dimensions, notes, that kind of stuff, and how to save. But for now, just viewports. Questions, comments, concerns? If there are none, I'm going to end the recording. Thank you.